Puts a smack down on those plates, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Oh yeah.
That looks a little better.
All right, guys, we had a little blast from the past there with Ray and some of our intro footage. We haven't had Ray on the channel in quite a while, but believe me, we've both been here at Moss Pond. I'm Eric, this is Ray. We got another mail call episode for you. And Ray's been here, and he just hadn't been in quite many of the videos. But today, this is episode 3, and we're going to talk about some of the gunsmithing questions that we've gotten in from you guys. And Ray, do you care to elaborate on how it's difficult to answer questions related to gunsmithing? I mean,
it can be difficult at times because not everyone knows the exact terminology needed to relay the information that they're trying to get across. There's confusion about certain names for parts and the usage for those parts. So it's oftentimes difficult to diagnose something over the phone. It's a lot better if you can certainly send some pictures via email, or if we actually have the part in front of us, but we can certainly give it a decent shot. You know, as much as we can do over the phone, we'll certainly try to do through the email. We've got a number of questions here that we're going to try to address as best we can. Some of them more to the point than others, but we're going to do the best we can for you. Absolutely.
Well, Ray's been gunsmithing for a very long time, and I actually learned a lot of stuff about gunsmithing from Ray. So also from a technical advisory standpoint, for a lot of the videos we do where we're doing all these kind of crazy builds, the fugly builds, the Sega builds, Ray's the guy that is responsible for helping those things get put together. So that's why I thought it would be pertinent to have him in this video, because we got some gunsmithing questions here. So without further ado, I'm going to read them and we're going to see what we can do to help you guys. All right, the first question comes from Robert. I have a Springfield model 1903. I know now that it shoots the famous 30-06. When I acquired the gun, I got it confused and I shot a 308 out of the gun. I fired 3 rounds and I realized my error. It was hard to eject. After inspecting the gun, I don't visibly see any damage. Live and learn. I'm just glad that me and the gun are okay. In your opinion, has any damage occurred to the gun other than my ego?
Most likely not. You know, in most cases, the action of those guns are more than plenty strong to handle that. You didn't push anything down the barrel that was the wrong size, oversized or anything. It was just a little bit short for the chamber. I'm sure the rounds looked a bit odd when they came out, but more than likely there was no damage done. I'd certainly go through the gun and clean it very thoroughly, make sure that you go in the chamber, run a good brush in the chamber with some quality solvent, and look at it very closely. There shouldn't be any damage to it though. Just carefully load 1 round of 30-06 and try it after you get it cleaned up. You should be good to go. I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Absolutely, I agree there. And also, I have actually fired a 30-06 rifle with 270 before.
Yeah,
it'll chamber and shoot right through it. It'll fire for him. It won't hit the right side of a barn. It's a little scary. It makes a weird sound. But generally, if you've got a quality firearm, it's not going to cause any damage. It's just going to hurt your ego a little bit, make you feel a little dumb. It happens, all right? No worries there. It's not uncommon for 1903 actions to get rebarreled to 308.
Not at all.
So, if you got an original military gun, it's probably going to be an 06, but always look for markings on the barrel that could indicate that it's been rechambered or rebarreled to a different cartridge. So, Robert, thanks for that. Jason wants to know, I recently bought a VZ 2008 and an NPAP. I bought all of these supplies to convert both rifles to collapsible AR-style stocks, but I'm unsure of what to do with the castle nut. There's no end plate. So should I attempt to stake the castle nut by dimpling the aluminum stock adapter, or should I use Loctite? I can't find any information on this topic at all.
Well, on that particular item, when you don't have a end plate for that to cinch down against, I would just pull it down with some Loctite, or if you want to go to the trouble, you could certainly drill through the lock ring and put a set screw in there and run the set screw up against the bottom of the extension tube. Just time it first and then mark it before you drill it so that you can keep the screw hidden. That would work quite nicely, and it doesn't have to be turned down at a terribly tight, torque. So I would try one of those 2 methods. The Loctite would be the simplest, and it would work just fine.
Absolutely, and if you guys are interested, we do have a video on the VZ58, which is essentially the VZ 2008 that Jason is talking about in this video. Is basically, actually I got one right here if you hold on with me. Got one right here.
Czechoslovakian version of the AK.
That's correct.
That, they didn't particularly want to follow the Soviet Union in designing a rifle, so they came up with their own design, and it's a nice gun, definitely is.
They are striker fired. We're kind of going off on a different tangent here, but this is the firearm that Jason is referring to.
Yep.
So Jason, we appreciate that question. Hopefully that was straightforward for you. Now, Dame wants to know, he says, I have a Swiss K31 carbine, and I was wondering if you could give me some advice on what brushes and stuff to use to clean the rifle.
Well, on the K31, they do use a 308 diameter bore, so you could use any of your standard cleaning supplies that you have for 308 hunting rifles, 30-06, 300 Win Mag, without any issue. I would certainly go to the trouble of cleaning the chamber a little more meticulously than on the average bolt gun, since they don't have quite the primary extraction that a turn bolt does. Besides that, normal cleaning practices are what you should use on that.
Absolutely, and the thing that I like about the K31 also is that it does use standard 308 diameter projectiles. So for hand loading, you can use anything. It'll stabilize all the way up to about a 220, all the way as low as about a 1 1/4, maybe a 135 grain. The K31 is an excellent rifle. If you guys are interested in learning more about the K31, we have many videos on the rifle. We're big fans of the gun. Be sure to check out the links below if you're curious about learning more about the K31 service rifle. All right, thank you, Dane. All right, Samuel wants to know, he said, can the chrome plating process be safely done within a home setting, preferably not too expensively? The answer to that, Samuel, is probably not.
No.
Plating involves the use of a lot of caustic chemicals that can actually be really harmful to breathe in, not to mention the heat required. To heat up some of those caustic chemicals, they're going to give off a couple of fumes and vapors that you certainly do not want to breathe. You don't want to get any of those caustic materials on your clothing or your skin. And more importantly, if you don't want your wife to skin your hide, you certainly aren't going to do it on your kitchen top.
Not at all.
Or, on the range top on the stove.
Not at all. The chromium sulfate is highly carcinogenic as well, so it's something that's somewhat controlled, and you can't just pour it down the drain when you're finished with it either. So probably something better left to a professional shop that deals with that regularly.
Yeah, it needs to be somebody that's actually set up to do it all the time. That would be my advice to you, Samuel. So thank you for asking the question. All right, Richard wants to know, I recently found a good deal on a Norinco Sporter SKS post-band that has some rusting issues. I'm looking for a way to clean the rust off and not hurt the finish. I've seen navel jelly and Evaporust, and don't know if these products would be good to use. Would it be better to just get it blasted and refinished? Ideally, I'm looking for something I can put on the disassembled parts and get the rust off without too much scrubbing.
For the most part, if you want to get the rust off without any major amount of scrubbing, then the navel jelly will work, but the thing is, it's going to take the bluing along with it. You're going to have raw metal.
Yep.
So you will have to refinish the gun or refinish the area that you use the navel jelly on. It's basically an acid, and it will strip the bluing right off. If you want to try something a little more elbow grease but less detrimental to the surface finish, get some pot scrubber from the grocery store, or if you can find a good hardware store that has it, or you can order this from Brownells as well. It's called bronze wool, and it comes in a number of grades. Just get a medium grade bronze wool, use a good quality penetrating solvent or oil, and just scrub it a little bit. You'll find that it'll take away most of the rust unless it's just real heavy and pitted. If that's the case, then you should probably just think about having it refinished, or just deal with it, one of the two. But the rust will come off with the pot scrubber or the bronze wool if it's going to come off.
I highly recommend a product called LPS2. It's a heavy oil that's designed for lubrication and protection, but it's also great to just take that bronze wool, coat it with some LPS2, go over it, and you'd be surprised how much of that surface rust will come off. Now, if the metal's highly pitted, you probably want to go ahead and blast it off and just park it. Usually when the metal's pitted bad, I like to parkerize guns, because on a blued finish, any kind of pitting is just going to show up. It's going to be a severe eyesore.
Yeah, it would look bad. I'd recommend parkerizing if it's heavily pitted too.
Absolutely. Richard, thank you there. All right, hopefully that helped you. Adam wants to know, I recently bought a Mosin & Gaunt that's been shortened and recrowned, but it still won't shoot accurately. Then I noticed it's missing both of the barrel bands. Could this be the thing that's causing the problem?
In some cases, yes, but not necessarily so. Oftentimes the bedding on the action where the two screws come through the bottom of the action and from the top of the action, those areas need to be bedded pretty well, or else the action is going to move around every time you fire the gun. The bands are there for the longer portions of the stock to hold them in place, but once the gun's shortened and sporterized, they're usually not necessary. A good bedding job, though, is very necessary for those rifles. Other things that you might want to look at is just the quality of the bore. Make sure that the crown is concentric and evenly cut. Maybe look at it with a magnifying glass. If there's any anomalies, that could certainly be causing your issues. And the other thing is surplus ammo is notoriously inaccurate. You might want to try some commercial loads or some hand loads if you do that, and see how things turn out at that point.
Absolutely. Excellent advice there, Ray. We get a lot of questions about Mosin accurizing and accurizing problems with Mosins in general. One thing I can add to what Ray said is make sure your action screws are nice and tight. Don't be afraid to cinch them down tight, because those Russian stocks are notorious for shooting loose. And as that action moves more and more, one, the accuracy is not going to be very good, but two, you can actually damage the stock. You can crack the stock once that action is setting back with each subsequent shot. Also, surplus ammo can be made to shoot a lot better if you run it through a Lee factory crimp die. You'll get a lot more consistent start pressures and increase your accuracy considerably just by running it through a Lee factory crimp die.
It does make a difference. One thing to consider on the rear tang screw on a Mosin, it is a blind hole going into the trigger group, trigger guard housing, and if it's not tightening up and feels like it's stopping, you may just have crushed wood and it's just not going to tighten up. You may end up having to shim it or bed it. So don't over tighten that. Just make sure when it feels like it's stopped that you haven't run it down to its end, or else you'll strip the screw or the guard.
If you guys are ever interested in accurizing Mosin, we've actually got a couple of videos that me and Ray have produced over the years that involve all kind of different things you can do to accurize them. We've got a really good no bubba style bedding video on the Mosin if you're interested in checking it out. The link is in the description box below, and that'll give you a great, simple, easy way to bed your Mosin without a lot of grief. So Adam, we appreciate that question. That's a very common question. All right, Willie wants to know. He says, I was just wondering if there are any products that remove bluing from rifles. I know that I could sand it or have it blasted off, but I'm on a low budget, and I was curious if there was a simple, do-it-yourself way to get it done. I've watched most of your how-to videos today, and I can't get anything for bluing removal. I have an Enfield No. 4 Mark I Sporter that I was thinking about removing the bluing from the bolt. Are there any products that protect the metal without changing the color? And don't worry, I'm going to leave the rifle alone until I'm totally confident that I can achieve the result I'm looking for.
There are a few products that you might want to look at. If you're looking to refinish the gun completely without having to polish it or sand it, I would recommend using some naval jelly, or you can buy the rust and blue remover that Birchwood Casey sells. It works pretty well. Some of those infills are actually painted. You might want to check before you start with the rust and blue remover to make sure that it doesn't need paint remover first. Once you get that off, then you can use any number of coatings to finish the gun out with. Raw metal, a good surface finish for that is a high quality wax, and you can use something like you would use on your automotive finish. You can buy King wax, you can buy any number of products like that. You just want something that's not a polishing compound. Just make sure it's a wax, put it on, buff it down, and that'll do a pretty fair job. Long-term storage, you might want to look at some of the long-term products that Brownell sells called Hold. LPS makes a product called LPS3 that also is excellent for long-term storage. They have like a 2-year guarantee against rust, and you just spray it on the item, set it away, and it's good to go until you get ready to clean it off and do what you need to with it.
It actually has almost kind of a wax coating basically. Yep. And what I've used before to put a hold on guns from rusting, which believe me, I have that problem quite often. I've got very acidic sweat and acidic hands, so a lot of the bare metal things I touch will rust if I'm not careful. But one thing I'll do is I'll take stock wax and I can coat the metal in a very light coat of stock wax, and then once that dries, I can just take a cloth and just gently go over it, and it won't add any color or change the sheen of the metal, but it'll still protect it. That's kind of a cheap way to do it.
Yeah, it works well.
All right, well, Willie, thanks for that question. We're almost there, guys. All right. Now, Raymond wants to know, how much would it cost me to do one of your custom Mosin builds? Now, this is a question we get a lot.
We do. And the thing is, it's hard to say that there's a specific price because there's so many variables and options that there are on the Mosins. For one, the guns come in various conditions, and they also have a whole bunch of anomalies just straight from the factory, even as brand new guns. So sometimes you have to worry about how straight the action is, if the barrel's turned into the gun crooked. But just as a reasonable starting point, you're looking at about $300 to $350 to start on one of the fugly type builds, and they can certainly go on up from there. Just if you really want one, give us a call or send us an email. We'll send you a copy of our price sheet, and you can call us and we'll discuss any options that you have on your mind.
Absolutely, guys. The contact information is below. If any of you guys ever want to call and ask a question, we're definitely here to help. Just let us know.
Definitely.
I'm Eric. This is Ray, as you guys know. Now, thanks, Raymond. Hopefully that points you in the right direction. Brent wants to know, I have a 1944 Tula Mosin Nagant that appears to be an ex-sniper rifle. I'm considering putting a rock-solid scope mount on it since its action and trigger are very nice considering it is a wartime production. My question is, will the old plugged holes in the receiver interfere with mounting the rock-solid mount on the side of the receiver?
I don't think they will. We've done a couple of them at this point that have been ex-snipers and they haven't interfered. They oftentimes have plugged holes due to the screws and also due to the alignment dowels, but they don't get in the way from anything I've ever seen. So, no, don't worry about it. And if you want that done, we can certainly take care of it for you.
Absolutely. On the rock-solid mount, there's 3 mounting points for an average rock-solid mount. There's 2 where the normal ATI spacing is, and then there's an anchor screw on the side that actually goes through the stripper clip guide notch in the side of the receiver. So none of those areas are where an original PU mount would have been put on the rifle. Just so you know, the Russians fielded about 3 different styles of mounts. One of them is a PEM style, they had a PU style, and they had a modified PU style that actually mounted on the top of the receiver, not the side. All 3 of those receiver types, or those 2 receiver types with the 3 mounts, they do have their own sets of holes. You'll know a PEM because it has 3 holes on each side of the hex receiver. Okay, and then of course the PU scope mounts are going to be on the side of the receiver, none of which interfere with the rock solid mount. All right, last question here. Dominic wants to know, hey, can you post a video or send me an email about how to clean a Mosin barrel with some frosting and pitting, maybe to a shine? Also, how do you know your barrel has too much pitting? That's a good question.
Well,
It's a very good question.
too much pitting is generally when the gun just won't shoot accurately at all, and it just is a real problem to clean every time you shoot it. I would say that if you see any major pitting in the barrel, that is probably not worth a whole lot of effort. If it's just very lightly frosted and not dark like a dirt road, you might be able to get after it with some JB Boar Bright that you can get from Brownells. You can also use Flitz metal polish or something very similar to that, even semi-chrome if the barrel is in pretty rough condition. Just use it on a tight-fitting brush with patches wrapped around the brushes. You are going to destroy the brushes, but they will give a nice tight fit. Use a little bit of lubricant oil when you do that, and that should be about as bright as it's going to get unless it's just, you know, in bad shape.
Absolutely.
Yep. So,
They also sell bore lapping bullets. If you decide that you want to load up some bore lapping bullets, they'll actually etch the bore to a very small degree when you shoot them, and sometimes that's a great way to draw some of those pitting marks out of the rifling itself.
Yep.
So guys, we greatly appreciate you asking all these questions. We have many more mail call videos on the way. Guys, I have like literally 900 emails in my inbox that are pertaining exactly to mail call videos. So I have enough questions to last a year or more. So we're going to try to hit on maybe about 8 or 12. And also we have many more fun video concepts coming, of which me and Ray are going to get out and abuse some more guns for one.
Definitely. We got a few things in mind I think you guys are going to enjoy a lot.
Absolutely. And we have some more shop videos planned where we'll get with Ray up in the shop and we'll do some gunsmithing stuff. I know many of you guys subscribe because you like the gunsmithing videos, and we definitely want to keep those videos coming. I appreciate your time today. I hope you enjoyed this video. We have many more on the way, and we appreciate your business. Have a good one.
You guys have a good one. Thanks.